Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of Health Talks with Dr. Trinh. The one show, maybe the only show, that shows you the path to a healthier and happier life. We'll just take a few principles and put them in place. Like apparently bringing faith into the medical offices. I don't know if that's possible here. To talk about it, we have Eithne Keegan with us. She's well-versed in both nursing and faith here. Welcome, Eithne.
Morning. And with me this morning, we have my esteemed leader, and that is Susan Johnson. She is my leader at Hogue, Newport Beach, for our faith-based community health nursing. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Eithne.
Susan, welcome to us. And, a lot of people out there are probably wondering and probably never heard of faith-based community nursing before. What is it? And is that the same as a parish nurse, or is it? Well, tell us a little bit about that.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Eithne. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to you all for having me on this morning. So faith community nursing is one of those things that many people have never heard of. And faith community nursing, in a nutshell, is a spiritually based preventive health and wellness program. And it is the same as parish nursing. Some people would know faith nursing as parish nursing, but it was changed to faith community nursing to be more inclusive. Originally, faith community nursing was started as a Christian-based model, but as we have evolved, we're now faith community nursing, and we welcome faith backgrounds of any denomination.
And Susan, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in faith community nursing. What made you do something like this? Tell us a little bit about your background.
So my background is in nursing, and then I have, in my nursing career, I worked primarily in critical care, and then I have a master's in international public health, which took me more into the community setting. So I worked in the early days with the HIV/AIDS programs and some prenatal programs, things like that. So program planning, it comes, is a passion, I guess you could say, for me. And then how did I get involved with faith community nursing is sort of like how we all got involved with it. A little bit of divine intervention and just a little bit of luck. So I think when I started, I'd never heard of parish nursing, and that trend continues to this day. When I speak to groups, they've never heard of faith community nursing. But in my case, I had a friend who said, hey, there's this job at Hogue. You might be interested in looking at it. And so when I first applied, it was through Hogue for a job at First Presbyterian Church in Santa Ana, and they needed a part-time faith community nurse there. And so that was where I was assigned. And it was a church with an English and a Spanish congregation. And so day one on the job, you show up, there's a stack of books on your desk, and they say, okay, you're a faith community nurse now, go for it. And so there wasn't a lot of knowledge of what to do. And luckily I connected with Nancy Amo, who had a very strong program at Trinity Presbyterian Church. So she became my mentor, and then, through the different support at Hogue. So it evolves every day, and it evolves to this day.
So can I ask a question, Eithne, here? I wanted to butt in once in a while and just throw out some thoughts here. Yeah. Tell me what it is. I grew up, I'm an Irish Catholic. I grew up going to the Catholic hospitals always if we got sick. And in those days, I don't know it so much anymore because they've all turned into corporations, there were nuns. They were founded by orders of nuns, and they lived in many cases in the hospital, on some floor there. And they wandered around, and they just made everybody feel better. Somehow, as my mother used to say, when you're in an emergency room and a nun walks in, everybody feels better. I don't know why, but somehow you feel like, this is going to be okay. Is it just comforting people, or is it, what do you do beyond regular nursing?
Yeah, well, in faith community nursing, we actually don't do a lot of regular nursing, but I think that we do fulfill that role of I don't want to say that we're nuns, because we're not, right. But in the hospitals, if we have a parishioner from our church that's hospitalized, one of the roles of the faith community nurse would be to go and visit that person and provide comfort through our presence, through sharing scripture, prayers, and just listening to their stories and their concerns. And so that's the spiritual side of faith community nursing.
Is it associated with one faith over another? I mean, these were Catholic hospitals. Hogue is a Presbyterian hospital, as I understand. So is it based on, is it primarily for people of a certain faith? Or have you got people, if I'm Muslim or Buddhist or, I don't know, something else?
It's for people of all faiths. So here at Hogue, it was started as a Christian-based program in the mid-1980s, right. And it was specifically for that. Reverend Granger Westberg began the program in the Midwest, and he saw that need for who can be that person to be able to provide that comfort to the patient, and what happens when the patient goes home. And so that was sort of the impetus for faith community nursing, that the nurse is knowledgeable about the medical side, the faith nurse is knowledgeable about the faith side, and so it's a good marriage. And so that was sort of the beginning of it.
So give me some stories, Ed. Now let's put it in perspective. Walk in. What's a faith community nurse do? What have you done? Give me some stories.
Recent stories. I am very new to the faith-based community health nurse. Hogue, I am now working at Hogue, Newport Beach, and Susan is my manager.
Okay.
So I started the program back in with Hogue back in November. Now, as you know from past programs, that I am with Healthcare Christian Fellowship,
right.
USA, and that is a nonprofit organization that I run. In essence, what we do at Healthcare Christian Fellowship, I was able to translate and bring my experience and my nursing and my knowledge to that same field to be a faith community nurse. I never thought I would ever end up in that area, as in that arena. And I always thought, wow, how would we do this? And what are parish nurses, and how did they come about, and what did they do for their parishes? But as we look at the role these days that actually the medical care is going back into the community. And this is where we as faith-based community health nurses are very valuable. We're in the churches, we're in the synagogues, we're in the temples, wherever we are needed. And we are the ones that are the eyes and the ears. We see our parishioners, our clients, our congregation come in, and we see, Mary doesn't look too well this morning. I better go and talk with her and see what is going on with Mary this morning. Mm-hmm. And as a faith community nurse, that's our role, is to be able to see our parishioners, see what's going on. If they don't show up, at their at church or at their synagogue, what happened to Mary?
So is it an outreach program, or is it? I keep thinking of it as an in-hospital program. Somebody's in the hospital, somebody comes to visit them and holds their hand, says a prayer, helps them through it, helps explain what's going on, gives them some comfort. But you're saying it's outside of the hospital.
It's inside, it's outside, it's in the congregations, it's in the community. We do different things. For example, we will do a blood drive, to help in the community and in the churches. We will do education for our parishioners, our congregation. And Susan, over the years, what have you found that's worked best for you, and what is a recent story that you have?
Yeah, tell me a case where you went and helped somebody and put it in perspective so I can picture what your day looks like.
I would say, I'll give you a little bit of background about the whole program. So we have 50 different faith partners, a number of Christian denominations, as well as Muslim and Jewish. So with faith community nursing, you can pretty much be located anywhere. And so one of our Muslim partners is located at a school. And then one of our Jewish partners works a lot with community members throughout Orange County. So it's very varied. And I would say what a nurse, as a faith community nurse, does depends on the needs of their congregation, as well as, his or her time and talents.
So give me a story that puts that in perspective. Like what? Give me like I just did this. Here's an example of what I just did. Just
recently, one of our faith community health nurses in a local parish, Juliana, she noticed that one of her parishioners was not at church anymore.
Okay.
And this was a lady that came frequently to church. I mean, she was always involved in the church. And Juliana talked to her pastor and said, I wonder where she is. So she just, and then the church said, well, she's not sending in her usual check either. So maybe something has happened to her. We better go and check. Mm-hmm. Well, Juliana checked, and she actually called. She didn't get any answer. She actually went out to the person's house, and she found out that the house was for sale. And that the estate, there was an estate sale there, and the house was for sale. And she said, what has happened to my to our parishioner? And they said, we can't tell you that. You're not related to her. Juliana said, well, I need to know, has she passed away? Is there any family? Is there somebody I can contact? I can get in touch with her. We love her. We just want to see what's happening with her. What's happened to her.
And tell her friends in the parish what's happened to her. There's others that probably miss her too. Yeah.
Yes, and then they finally gave her the information and told her that she was gone to an assisted living. And Juliana went to see her, and she came to find out that there was only one family member that was, I think it was a stepson, Susan, right? That
so she didn't have much family, right?
That was family, and he took over her care, but didn't tell them that where she was or anything. So now Juliana went to see her, and you should have seen the smile on her face.
Oh, bad.
And the look on her face when she saw Juliana, and she said, how did you find me? And so this is just one of the things that a faith community nurse does. They look out for their congregation. They look out for their community. They go the extra mile, right, Susan? What would you say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's so different. Like, we have another nurse who one of the parishioners it was a married couple, and the husband was getting IV treatments that the visiting nurse had been out and said, okay, this is how you give him his IV medication. You just hook up this little bag and that's all you have to do. And so, it was in the evening and she just did not feel comfortable and she didn't know what to do. So she called up the faith community nurse. And in this case, the nurse went to the woman's house and walked her through it. And so she demonstrated how to do it, but then she was also there to give reassurance to the wife and to be able to say, yes, you can do this. And, this is what you have to watch out for. And she basically reiterated what the visiting nurse had said.
But we go through these things alone for the most part. We've talked, Eithne and I have talked about this in other past episodes. I'm an only child. I lost my mom. I lost my dad. Then I lost my mom's sister. Who didn't get married, didn't have anybody else but me. 3 times I went through the death of a parent or a relative, and I was the primary caregiver. I wasn't ready for any of this stuff. They're asking me questions, I'm making decisions, and I got nobody to talk to. I don't have any brothers or sisters. There's no other family here. It's me. Trying to talk to your friends about it. Good luck. I don't want to hear about it. And we don't know about it. And so many times I wished I could have had somebody I wanted to cry. I was scared. I was mad. I just wanted a shoulder to lean on and somebody to talk to. My wife would help a little bit. I've got a daughter, but everybody, it's you. The doctor's coming in and saying, what do you want to do? The patient, your loved one's looking up at you saying, what are you going to do? And I don't know what to do.
Well, that's a perfect example of where and how a faith community nurse can be of benefit. And so one of the roles of the faith community nurse is that as healthcare counselor, healthcare advocate. Yes. And so we've had more than one situation where that's been the case. And so the family will come to the nurse and say, okay, can you explain what all this life support means? In our faith, do we have to keep them on life support? Could we,
why would we? Yeah. Everything.
Right. All that sort of thing, and so that can be very, very personal and in the moment. And then there's other nurses who act as, health educators, and they bring in a speaker to their church, mosque, synagogue, to talk about these things through programs such as 5 Wishes and talking about advanced directives, when we're still healthy and well and, can think about these things as opposed to in the heat of the moment, and then, so when the person passes, and people are going through the grief process, some of our nurses have set up a program called Griefshare. And so that particular model is Christian-based. It's a weekly program. And that's the sort of thing that can be for, your church members and or community members, because not everyone wants to open up quite so much within their close circle of friends at church. So
why is it so lonely these days to die, Eithne? So many die alone. I've told this story. I'll tell it again here quickly. So my dad died, my mother died, and then I took care of her sister, and she died over a couple of year span. And in each case, I was the only one there. Now they didn't. It was, but for me, they would have all died alone. And I suspect many, many die alone. And the story I always tell is this: my aunt lived out in Palm Desert. I live here in Orange County, and so I know she's in a hospice program. I knew the end is coming, and finally they give me the call. Hey, we think she's actively dying. I don't know how they tell, but you guys all seem to know she's actively dying. We think this is it. If you want to see her, you better get out here. So I hop in my car, I race out there 2 hours, or I think I made it an hour and a half. I get out there just before she dies, 30 minutes before she dies. And when I show up at the facility, they say, "Are you her son?" "No, I'm her nephew." And they say, "Her nephew? What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I love her, and I'm the only one around." And I said, "Why do you ask?" And they say, "'Cause nobody comes. Nobody comes. That's why we're here. We call you up and say it's over, and you shed a little tear, and then you get back to work or back to your life." She said, nobody ever comes to see these people die. And I was just, my jaw dropped. Your jaw's dropping. I suspect there's an awful lot of people that the most frightening thing we can imagine, dying alone, do so. What do you say, Eithne? You must see this all the time.
Yes, and it is a very lonely place. That's why we have to have some kind of a connection with the community, or a connection with the church, or a connection with a faith group of some kind. So that will help us in times. You should have had somebody that would be able to walk alongside you.
Yes.
A faith-based community nurse, a parish, or as they used to call them, parish nurses. There should have been somebody to come alongside you.
And we're good Irish Catholics. So my aunt was a longstanding member of a parish out there. But I didn't know who to call, and nobody, this all happened over a period of time. Nobody was sort of checking in on her, and I didn't know what to do. So I went out there out of love, out of duty, out of respect, all these things. I held her hand, and she passed away. And as much as I didn't want to go through it, it was a beautiful experience. It was a very peaceful passing. I always say the other dramatic story, this is like out of a movie. My aunt was from the Midwest. We talked about this once before. She's Irish. I knew she loved me, but she would never say it. You didn't say, don't make me say it. I don't want to say this kind of stuff. I don't know why that generation and that culture. Yeah. And so as she's dying, I say to the nurse or whoever the attendant is, somebody there, I said, only thing I'm going to be sad, because she's been in a coma all day. And so I think she's unresponsive. She's not saying anything. And I'm talking to her. And of course, we always know, supposedly the hearing's the last thing to go. I don't know how they prove that. But so I start to say this, nurse, the only thing I'm going to be sad about is I never heard her say the words, I love you. And at that moment, like cue the music, all of a sudden she starts mumbling. She hasn't talked all day. And I go, what? What's she saying? Oh, my God, what is it? What is it? I lean in. She says, I love you. And with that, she dies. I'm like, this is like, you had to wait till I'm going to get choked up. You had to wait, till 93, the last possible second to say this. But it was, I would have, but for, if I had done what so many of my friends and other people do, let somebody else take this, send them someplace. Tell me when it's over. I don't want to see it. It's gruesome. It's horrible. I don't want to be part of it. I can't handle it. All the stuff I hear all the time here. I would have missed that.
You would have missed it if you hadn't gone out. And see, that's why we, as faith-based community health nurses, we can see things like this. We can see what's happening with our parishioners. We see them. We watch them as they come in to our congregations. We observe. We are nurses. We're trained to observe. We would have seen if you were hurting.
Yeah.
One of us would have seen something was going on with you. And,
because everything else is a drive-in. So I hate to, this is a bad analogy, but I drive into my doctor's office. He says, how are you? And I drive out. I drive into the church. I go to the ceremony. I drive out. I say hi to a few people on the way in or out, but I don't feel a connection with my doctor. I'm sorry to say I don't have a doctor really. Like so many of us, I just go to a clinic or I go someplace and they might be very nice, but I get 5 minutes with them, and they're in and out. And as my aunt got worse and worse over time, she had a couple long-standing doctors. She had a rare form of blood cancer, so she had a doctor. And I'd say to the doctor, if I could grab him for 2 seconds before he raced out, I'd say, well, what do I do? He'd go, I don't know. That's not my job.
This is another thing that faith community nurses do with their congregations. They actually, they will help them. They will go and visit the doctor with them and help explain what's going on. That's another role of a faith community health nurse. We walk alongside them. We are with them. We help them. We do education programs. We encourage them. We empower them. We get them together in groups. We help them with this isolation that they have. Now, granted, there are some people that just don't want other people around them, sure. But we do everything we can, right, Susan? And what would you say, another role of, we do whole person care. So what do you mean by whole person care? What would you say whole person care is, Susan?
Right. Well, the whole person care is the care of the mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And going back to the
And nobody talks about the spirit. These are all, you're going through the most spiritual thing in your life. I'm going to die. Is there something on the other side? The ultimate question we all ask ourselves, and many of us don't think about anymore till that moment. And at that moment, the the little nurse that's in there, she goes, I don't know what to say. The doctor goes, I don't know what to say. And everybody goes, I don't know what to do. And maybe your priest shows up or your pastor or something here, but more often than not, you're just, oh my God, this is it. And the look on their face and the look on your face and everybody around, and we don't know how to handle this. I mean, which is why I think most people punt. Most people say, give it the ball to somebody else here. I don't want to handle it.
And that's the beauty of here at Hogue, we have a program called the No One Dies Alone.
Oh, thank you.
So when the person's passing is imminent, then there's a group, somebody from that group would be with the person. And certainly if there's a faith community nurse, the faith nurse can work with the family and kind of explain what to expect, that sort of thing, and how they can be supportive. And then we also have a really robust chaplaincy program here at Hogue, and so they would be involved. And so I know that Hogue is, we're unique in that way.
I think so. This was at Eisenhower out in the desert, big, famous, big, giant hospital. And that bigness even makes it worse because there's a flurry of activity around, and yet you are alone in that room.
Right. Yeah. And I can't say what other hospitals do, but it's such a comfort.
In fact, usually they leave you. Now, what happens is, in each case, my mom, dad, they come in and say, this is it, they're dying. And then you go in, you're crying, you hold your hand, you try to talk to them something, and they leave. We'll leave you alone. And I guess that I understand a little bit of that, but it would have been nice to have a shoulder around somebody to say a nice little prayer, to give me a little bit of hope, to put this in perspective, to just listen and hold my hand as I got mad or got happy or not happy, but joyful at being there with this or something. I don't know. There was a range of emotions, and we did it behind closed doors alone.
That's why we do whole person care as faith-based community health nurses. So we take care of all the different aspects, the mind, the body, and the spirit.
So do you give any advice on
aspect of that? We pray with the patients.
Yeah.
We help them with whatever they're going to, like Susan mentioned about Griefshare. For you, what did you do after your aunt passed away, after your mom passed away? Did anybody help you or encourage you or tell you or educate you or empower you or do anything to help you grieve and learn how to grieve?
No, absolutely not. No. And in fact, when you reach out to your friends, they're like, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I can't deal with this myself. I had friends that said, friends I'd known since I was a child that knew my relative, knew my mom, knew my dad, said, I'll do anything I can for you, but I can't be there. I'm not going to a funeral. I don't go to funerals. You're going to have a funeral, first of all? I don't want to go to a funeral. Nobody has funerals anymore. I'll go to a little celebration of life and we'll have a drink and we'll toast to your aunt. I'll do that. But you want me to actually go out and see the dead body? You want me to sit there through some service? I ain't doing that under no circumstance. And it was very lonely. It
is very lonely. It's a very lonely place, and that's why we recognize that, and that's where we come alongside the person. That's why we take care of them. We see that. We see the pain. We see the suffering, and we see also the joy that
there is a certain joy if it's done right. There's a certain after the pain. There's a certain release and a hope and a happiness and. Hope they're happy, they're in a good place, they're not hurting anymore. In my mom's case, I'll give you another dramatic. My mother was just terribly suffering at the end, not like her sister. Mm-hmm. My mother had Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and everything else, and she'd been in and out of the hospital over multiple years. This last time, she's so weak, and she wants to die. She's miserable, and I want her to die. And I hate that thought of that I want my mother to die, but I can't watch this thing. I can't go through it, and I can't watch her go through it anymore. And I remember my dad and I going out and saying a prayer after, she's emerged in the urgent care again for the umpteenth time. And he said, let's say a prayer. And I said, Dad, what are we praying for? And he looks at me angrily. I'm like, you know what we're praying for? We're praying for this to get over, for her, for us, for everybody. This is horrible to watch. And there's no hope. She's not going to get better. Now, that sounds horrible, like a selfish little kid. And I didn't want to feel that way, but I also knew that's how she felt.
Yeah, she needed somebody to come alongside her. He also, why was he angry? Because he was sad for her too.
And he was sad for him because he'd been with her for 50 years. This is his true life partner. They had a real tight relationship, and he it's like I hate to say this, a bad analogy, when people keep their pets alive. I've done this myself, just keeping them going and everything else just because you can't let go.
That's right. And that's what we are there for. The faith community nurse are there for. So a question for you, Susan. Hogue, how did Hogue's faith-based community health nurse come about? I know you mentioned that you got involved, but how did Hogue get involved in this, and why did they get involved in faith community?
Why would any big giant hospital corporation give a ding dong about faith and comfort and everything else? It's all about service. It's all about efficiency. It's all about technology. It's all about curing. I always felt, and I'll go one step further, maybe I'm going to get on a rant here, but I always felt that hospitals and doctors were lost at this moment like we were. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. And it was almost an embarrassment. I was supposed to keep her alive, and I got 40s, and they're grasping at straws. You want to put them on life support. You want to do this and everything. We'll try everything we can to keep them alive, but they almost didn't want to be there because, like, we failed. We don't know what to do.
Exactly. Well, Hogue was an early adopter of parish nursing back in the day. So Hogue's program began under the Pastoral Care Department in 1987, and so we're one of the oldest programs in the country, and I would say one of the most robust programs, certainly in Orange County, if not Southern California. And so Hogue, as a faith-based hospital, is wants to support that aspect of care. And so it's primarily done through the pastoral care is now known as spiritual care. So the spiritual care department is directly involved with individual patients, and then the faith community nurse sort of picks up that role, in the community. And
so this comes from their basic mission here. But again, I come from a Catholic tradition, and Catholics were really known for starting hospitals, particularly nuns.
Sure.
St. Joseph's or whatever. We can rattle off a million names here locally. And yet all of those over time got bought out by corporations. And I don't know that any of them are run by faith-based communities anymore. And if they are, they're only tangentially sort of associated with that. But put the nuns aside or put the other people aside. Hogue, I don't picture. I know it was a faith-based thing, but to me it just seems like another one of the half a dozen giant hospitals here. I don't think of it as particularly different. It might be I'm not saying it's a really good hospital, but I'm just saying I don't picture it as having this differentiated, this faith element to it much anymore, or maybe I'm just not seeing it.
I feel like, at least with faith community nursing, we definitely are not on the same level as, we don't get the attention that the science and the technology gets.
Yeah.
But Hogue has an entire board of directors that support the faith aspect of the hospital. And so we're there. I would say we're subtle, but
you're there. Thank goodness. Why did so many people? Why is it then in a corporate mentality, as corporations buy up faith-based hospitals? These hospitals are there to help people in need. That was the whole. What isn't that the purpose of organized faith-based communities anyway? Is to provide health and hope and at the moment you need it most, when you're sick, when you're dying, when all this stuff. Why, that seems a perfect place for all faiths to be. And yet many faiths did not have that outreach.
They are trying to get back to that. I know corporations are buying us out, but they're seeing that they can't really work without having something, a purpose in life, a hope.
Good.
They can't really get anywhere, if they treat you like a number.
Or treat you just like a consumer. You come in, a pay-per-service. I have this, you pay for this, and see you next time when you need us here. Yeah.
Now, I'm a new faith-based community health nurse. And just recently, I just started in November. And just to give you the difference between working in a faith-based community health environment and a regular generic hospital, for example, I was ill a couple of weeks ago, and I came home from the doctor, and I was off work for a little bit, and I came home, and at my doorstep there was a bouquet of flowers and a bag of groceries for me.
Oh, even better. Yeah.
From my colleagues and the faith-based community health nurses.
Somebody cared. Somebody noticed.
That, and I just said to myself, these people walk the walk.
Yeah.
They don't just talk the talk.
But it's so needed. And I'd like to expand on that, because I think hospitals have gotten into technology to differentiate themselves. We've got the bigger, better equipment. They've gotten into efficiency. They're into the science of it. They've improved our lives and our longevity and our results and everything, all the things we asked them to do. But somewhere along the way, when it comes to the spirit, when it comes to the fear and emotion and mental well-being of the people experiencing this trauma, those going through it and those around them, they walk away. They don't know how to. Is it they don't know how to monetize that? Is it they don't recognize it doesn't pencil into their profit and loss corporate mentality? Is it they don't want to offend anybody, or they just don't have the training and know what to do?
But in this case, I wasn't just a number.
But that's what I'm saying. We all just feel like you're a number. Take a number and you wait in line. Yeah.
No, I wasn't a number. I was part of the community. And that's what faith-based community nurses, that's what we do. We bring hope, and we show that we care.
And comfort and care. It's got to be easier. It's got to be easier to take care of somebody who's sick or dying if you can keep them calmer too, if you can give them some reassurance, if you can give them some support. If they're panicking, if they're fearful, if they're frightened, they're gonna lash out, they're gonna pull stuff out, they're gonna do things. My dad would yank his IVs out and stuff and everything. I'm not dying, and let's go, get up, let's go. I mean, he was a bull. Yeah. And somebody needed, others needed to just calm him down and say, this is what you're going through.
And I would say the hospitals that do have chaplaincy departments and faith community nurses, that's when we can step in and help be part of that process.
Right.
And then also it gets back to the community, because I think the hospitals are so busy these days. Yeah. Overworked, overwhelmed, and that's not just Hogue, that's across the country.
Absolutely. Understaffed, more so with COVID, and they're more intense, and everybody's burned out, and people are quitting, and they're getting sick and everything else. And so I get it. There's a stress and strain on the system that makes it even harder. But all that does is just ramp up the tension.
Exactly. And so that's why with the faith community nurses have other tools that they can use in the community. And so one of the things that our nurses have done over the years is provide support groups for their congregations. And so that might be a caregiver support group. It might be a grief and loss support group. It could be, it could be whatever the needs of the congregation are. But I would say that with our partners, those are the two top needs, because caregiving is a huge issue.
Oh, and
So,
it goes on much longer than the. Again, our medical system is intervention based. It's pay per service. It's a constrained time period. I get in, I get a couple minutes of the doctor's time. I'm on a conveyor belt. The clock is ticking, and there's only so much advice he can give me about other things, about health, about wellness, about diet, about anything else. They can sort of mention these things, but they're really focused for this. You've got this problem right now. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to make a prescription. I'm going to create a procedure. Boom. Next. I've diagnosed a problem. I'm a car mechanic. I've diagnosed a problem. Bring the next car in. And we're not cars. The confusion, the chaos, the discomfort, the anger, the fear, everything else floods over, and everybody around them. And it's an infectious disease. And then they're sick for a long period of time, like all of my mom, dad, and aunt. I didn't know how to be a caregiver. I wish you guys would do classes on preparing for the end, what it's like, what to expect. I was totally shocked. I'd never thought about it. I didn't know what to do. And on the fly, I'm making up decisions. I'll give you another classic example, puts it all in perspective. So my dad, what killed my dad finally, he had leukemia, had all these heart, aorta, the burst, all these things. He had a stroke, everything. He made it through that. What killed him was he fell and hit his head, and suddenly had a brain contusion, swelling up and everything here. He fell badly. And when we get there, I go racing get out in the desert, and I'm in an emergency room. What do we do, Doc? He's in a coma. His head is swelling. Well, we got to go in and relieve this. We think it might go down, but we think we can go in and relieve this tension, get rid of the blood. I said, okay. I'm trying to be logical, like my dad taught me. So what's the pros and the cons? Give me the two choices. Well, if we do this, he'll almost certainly be blind when he comes out. And if we don't do it, he'll most certainly die. I said, what's my third choice here? Blind or dead? And I fumbled. I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, the thing went down. And for a while, he got better. But I looked at him, I said, what should I do? And they go, your call, but you got to do it right now in 30 seconds. I've got to make life and death decisions in 3 minutes. Who do I talk to? If I could turn to somebody and say, what do you think? Explain this to me. What am I missing? What should I be doing? I'm the good son. How do I handle this? I've got to make a decision I'm not prepared to make.
And this is what this program offers. So what does the whole program offer if someone would want to join, Susan?
So the program, from an overview of it, if church, mosque, synagogue, or other faith organization would like to join, we offer primarily training and support are the key elements that we offer. And we do that through our continuing education offerings with our monthly meetings. We offer the nurses a chance to network with the other nurses so that they can learn best practices and new ideas. We offer an annual spirituality conference, and we offer I'll say an occasional professional development course for the nurses with a regional conference. And then we provide them with the books and literature and things so that they can read and learn more about faith community nursing, as well as offering a 5-day course in becoming a faith community nurse. And then on the practical side, we offer the flu vaccine and all of the equipment and supplies and training that are needed to provide that for their community outreach efforts. We provide them with automatic external defibrillator and courses in CPR and first aid. And we provide them with blood pressure equipment. So if they want to do the blood pressure clinics for their congregations. And
so I'm a bit lost, though. Are you trying to say, Eithne, that you guys are recruiting other nurses to join the program, or are you trying to encourage other churches to add this to this or other hospitals to open this up? What are you looking for?
Both, because we see the value of this program.
I can see the value instantly, and I'm wondering why there aren't more of them. Yeah.
There aren't, because people don't know about it. That's why we're on your show this morning.
I went through it 3 times alone. I didn't know there was anything like this. Yeah.
Yeah. To educate others on what we do and how we do and the value of it to their community, of bringing somebody like this alongside in their congregations, in their temples, in their
mosque, anywhere here, right? All right, so let's say I'm a nurse listening today. Dr. Trin's got a lot of nurses listening. Like you were, you're still a nurse somewhere, right, Eithne? You still are?
I'm now a faith-based community health nurse at Hogue. I'm the advocate for our Hogue faith-based community nurses.
But for years, just quickly, I mean, I've
been in all kinds of nursing in different areas, but my nonprofit organization, Healthcare Christian Fellowship, has been doing a smaller aspect of this, trying to encourage and empower and give people tools in order to help their people and the nurses and doctors and regular, people, how to come alongside one another.
Because what struck me on one of the other episodes you were on before this, and you're just a regular nurse. I mean, not a regular nurse, but you're a nurse at a hospital somewhere here.
Yes.
And there's a crisis. And you and Dr. Trin both said, I said, so what do you do? Just leave the room? Okay, I'll leave you guys to figure it out. And you used to say, well, once in a while, and I wasn't sure I'm supposed to do this, but it looks like the time to do it. Hey, would you like to say a prayer? And it
wouldn't be just once in a while, Paul. I would always ask.
And I never asked. Nobody ever asked me in all these 3 they went in and out of the hospital 30, 40 times probably. Not once did anybody ever come in for them or for me and say, "You want to say a prayer?"
I would say that's the beauty of our faith community nurse course. And we cover 15 different topics over the 5 days. And one of them is on prayer. And how do we ask patients if they want to pray? How do we discern if they would like a prayer? And so over the course of giving, this series of classes, we've trained 150 nurses in becoming faith community nurses. So these are people that would like to pray with somebody, and basically through the course they've got permission and they've got the knowledge on how do you make that offer to somebody.
And people were listening. I'm sure there's many people of faith listening, and they're rolling their eyes saying, well, everybody knows how to pray. I'm telling you, over 50% of Americans now belong to no faith. It's a well-known fact. All the Pew Research keeps saying fewer and fewer people have any faith connection. Doesn't mean they don't believe in God, but what's your religion? None. And so they don't go to, and I'm part of a community, they don't go to church or a mosque or anything here. All they do is they don't know what to do at that moment. Do I get on my knees? Do I say, I don't even have the words to speak. Maybe I haven't said a prayer in years. I don't even know how to pray anymore.
And that's the beauty also of this course, because with all the different religions, every faith tradition has their way of praying.
Right.
You have people who are very spontaneous prayers. You have people who are more,
formal
prayers, or, or personal prayers. And so one of the exercises that we do is we set up scenarios, and, we put them in groups of 2, and they get to pray for each other. And it's really fun to hear the discussions, because it's like you said, it's like maybe people haven't prayed out loud or prayed for someone, but the course gives them, the experiences of what does it feel like to ask somebody. And I know years ago I had surgery here at Hogue, and one of our nurses is a faith community nurse, and she came to see me before I went, for the procedure. And she came in and she prayed with me, with the physician who was there. and a couple of other people. And I still remember that. That was, quite a few years ago. And it was such a touching and meaningful experience.
I got to believe, now I'm just guessing, but in this busy, crazy corporate hospital, racing, rushing, overwhelmed, bells ringing, things happening, and the way nurses burst into the room, the way doctors burst into the room as they're making the rounds, they just, hi, knock, 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 come in, hi, I got 30 seconds to be here to take your blood pressure, to do something here. If we were on their knees or holding hands and in prayer, I think they'd either be shocked, embarrassed, or stunned. I don't know that they, oh, somebody's praying in a hospital. I don't even know what to do. Do I stay quiet? Do I leave until you're done? Do I join in? Well, how do people react?
They stop. They just, they politely stand back and they wait, the 30 or 60 seconds until the prayer is over. And I think as more people become trained as faith community nurses, and I think as hospitals have more chaplains, that it becomes ingrained a bit more into the culture. And
it should be commonplace. Instead, I think it's a rarity. I'm going to guess it's a rarity that if there's praying going on, it's real quick and quiet and out of the way. But prayer and an appeal to God and a spiritual aspect of this has been surgically removed from this very cold surgical environment here. And I don't know why we can't get it back in, because if I need prayer at any moment in time, it's probably there.
And that's the beauty of it, as Susan said, that we as faith-based community health nurses are there to help other people learn how to do this and bring it back into the.
So how do we help get the word? How do we help get you more nurses signed? Does it cost anything to sign up? Is this a volunteer program that you do? Do you get paid to do it? Who pays? How does this all work?
And do you have to be an RN to take the course that we give? Hogue gives the course, the foundation's course of faith community health nurse. And do you have to be an RN to do it? And how do they go about it?
And do they pay for it, or is it just a extra skill they add and then they bring into wherever they're a nurse, or does it a formal program? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an American Nursing Association specialty. And so the curriculum that we use to teach the course is a national curriculum, and there is a cost. There's different levels. If you're one of the Hope partners, it's cheaper. And if you're somebody from the outside, it's a little bit more. But the program itself, we ask for a $600 donation from each of our churches, mosques, synagogues. And that price has not gone up since 1987, so it's still a good deal.
And who pays it? Is it if I'm a nurse and I decide I want to do this, would I just pay for it in my pocket because I want to get this set of skills? Or would I go to my church or my faith or my community or something and say, hey, I'm willing to volunteer and be this in your community. If you'll get me trained, you pay for it and I'll do it.
So the church or other faith organization, they pay the $600 in most cases. If they can't afford it, then that's
figure it out, right.
And then it depends on, if the church has a budget for the faith community nurse, they'll often pay for that fee to take the course.
And then, and once I become certified, is this just a volunteer thing I do outside of my normal job, or do I get paid by somebody is there an actual paid position to do these somewhere?
So we have a staff there's 5 of us here at Hogue, and 2 of the nurses are in the field working at churches. And so they're paid faith community nurses. Out of our 50 partners, I think about 10% of them are paid by their congregation. And then the others are volunteers. We would love to see that every one of the nurses is paid.
Sure.
Because you get more consistency, I think, and there's more, there's
real value decides a real, compensation for time, effort, and everything. You'd get more people participating because many people can't afford to do both. I'm a nurse. I'm stressed out. How much more time can I go volunteer?
That's exactly right. So, the program is open to nurses of all ages. We have nurses who are just basically starting their careers, and we have nurses who are finishing up their careers, and some in between. So we would love to see more nurses throughout Orange County become aware of this program, participate in it. And I would say it's up to the nurses to let their clergy know that this program exists and how it's a benefit to the clergy.
Right.
Because
take the burden off them too. Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right.
Pastor can't be everywhere. All right. So, and Eithne brought up the question: do you have to be a nurse, or can other people take this just because they want to learn this skill?
I'll go ahead and answer that one.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the majority of people who have taken the course have been nurses, but those who are interested in the topic can take it as they get a health minister certification.
Okay.
And so the health ministers are a great adjunct to the faith nurses because they can be part of a supportive committee to help the nurse develop the programs. For the individual, for the group, or for the community.
How many hospitals have faith-based community nurses? Is Hoag alone? Do they all have them? I just didn't know about them.
So in Orange County, Hoag has the only program that I'm aware of. I think there are a couple of other hospitals where they employ one nurse. So there's two hospitals that employ one nurse. And so we have about 75 nurses that are part of our volunteer team. And then with this foundations course, we have taught in LA County at various hospitals, as well as out into Apple Valley. And so in Southern California, there are other networks of nurses, but in Orange County and we're the go-to organization, and I'm proud to say that Hoag is
leading the way on this one.
Supporter.
All right. Well, how do we reach you, Eithne, and everybody else? People are intrigued. They want to learn more. They want to go to their local church and say, hey, we should have one of these. They want to enroll in the program because they're a nurse, or they want to find out more. How do they find out? How do they sign up? How do they join you?
Susan, I'll have you answer that for us, please.
Okay, so they can contact me directly. They could call Hoag or susan.johnson2@hoag.org.
All right, and once more, slowly, people are trying to write this down. What is it?
Okay, so my email is Susan, SUSAN .Johnson, JOHNSON 2, the number 2, at Hoag, HOAG.org.
Okay.
Or my phone number is
Go ahead.
949-764-6594.
There you go.
And we do have a website, but it's under construction, and so I'm not sure you would get the latest and greatest information, but you can also go to Hoag Faith Community Nursing.
Hoag Faith Community Nursing.
Community Nursing.
I'm sorry if I've struggled to wrap my head around this because it seems so obvious and so needed, but so rare that I've never seen it. And I don't know why faith can't come back. Faith and spirituality can't come back into a whole health care program. It's certainly the moment. If you have any faith, if you need any faith, when you're in the hospital, that's when you need it. That's when it emerges again here. It may have been dormant for a long time, but at that moment you're wondering, how am I going to make this? How am I going to handle this? How am I going to help somebody? How am I going to help myself? How am I going to deal with this? Trying to make sense of all the choices and the stress and the pressure and the emotions and everything going through it. It's a counseling of any sort is certainly necessary and needed. And not just counseling, but just somebody to say a prayer with, somebody to hold your hand, somebody to be there for you so it's not alone. All of that and more. I think you're doing
regardless of your faith.
Regardless of your faith.
We're here for you. We're an interfaith organization, and we are here for you.
Yeah, and that's what my mother used to say. My mother worked in an emergency room in a hospital, volunteered at a Catholic hospital back in the Midwest, and she was so angry that it was a Catholic hospital where the nuns were sort of shunted aside. They don't get in the way, sister. And she said that's where they were needed. They just need to bring them down to the emergency room and just go from room to room and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What can I do for you? Do you understand what's happening? Do you want to say a prayer? Can I hold your hand for a moment? She said when that would happen, everything would calm down. Everybody would have more hope. Everybody would just thank you. It was the one thing overlooked in most emergency rooms.
And we're there for children too.
Oh,
it's not just it's from 0 to death. Where the faith community health nurses are there for
take the kid for a walk. Who's going to explain to little Timmy that mommy's dying or something? Oh, horrible things,
We'll have to bring the teddy bear club person on next time.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes. Yes.
I think you guys are doing God's work. I really do. And I think there's more of it needed. So I hope everybody will take advantage of that. What's that website again? Give it to us one last time.
So it's Hogue Faith Community Nursing.
What a great idea.
When you go there, you can find our contact information. And we would love to hear from nurses, clergy, and people who can make the connection with their faith organization.
Absolutely.
Because it really is a worthwhile program.
I concur. It sounds like it. Well, thanks for coming on, sharing your stories. I look to have you come back again and give us updates as the program grows, as faith gets back into where it's been long sorely lacking in this scientific, sterile, scientific world of medicine. Maybe a little faith, sprinkle a little faith might help and go a long way here. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another great reason, if you haven't got enough already, why you need to tune in each and every time to Health Talks. Because we're talking about the whole health, mind, body, and soul. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net.